So, hello and welcome to another comparison video. Today we're going to be looking at the Lucky Dime chapter starring Donald Duck. This is a Sega Master System and a Game Gear game from 1991, and it's not a bad game. I've played a few Disney games over the years, particularly Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck in was it Castle of Illusion? So played a few of them, but obviously this is going to be a comparison for 50 hertz versus 60. Now, generally, a lot of people would say that 60 hertz is going to be a lot more consistent. That isn't always the case. Some of these 50 hertz games tend to play odd glitches and weird behavior when you switch to 60 because some of the games are particularly optimized for 50 hertz. From what I've seen on this game and the things I looked up on Wikipedia, in Europe it was basically Sega Master System only, and then in the US it was Game Gear. Obviously, from my understanding, is that the US Game Gear was pretty more popular than the Master System ever was in the US. This isn't a particularly difficult game, but it is it's got a good challenge to it. There is also a follow-on game called Deep Trouble, which is a more expensive one. I think I've seen it for, it was like £45 on eBay, I believe. But this is a decent game. The 50 hertz and 60 hertz difference, it's more consistent in terms of like Donald controls much more effectively and it's much easier to control him at 60 hertz. But you will find that the enemies move far too fast, so it becomes really, really difficult to sort of anticipate what the enemies are going to do when you change the basically essentially the frame rate from what would it be, from 50 to 60 hertz. But it's a good decent game. It's not a particularly expensive game. I think it's like £10 to £14 on eBay, and there's quite a lot of levels to it. Obviously, you've got Huey, Dewey, and Louie you have to save in this, and then you've got then you have to go and get the actual the lucky dime type coins. I think they're coins as far as I'm aware. There are some key differences between this particular version and the Game Gear version. So, for instance, the Game Gear version. Oh no, I was wrong. No, so the storylines are the same, but the intro sequences are different. There is no level select on the Game Gear. Doesn't have any music, which is kind of weird. Layout of the platforms and positions between the two versions are different, and you've got bonus items are pre-placed in the level on the Game Gear version, whereas the Master System version you only obtain a bit by defeating enemies. And it can be a challenging game, certain levels. I don't think I've ever beaten it. I owned it as a child, and then, like an idiot, I sold all my games at some point. That's what you do as a child a lot of the time, unless you're smart and you don't. Also, one of the more interesting features is that this Master System version has a timer. A Game Gear version doesn't, which is kind of weird. Obviously, screen crunch is going to be a drawback with the Master System version. I sort of said that with my Sonic 1 versus Game Gear and then Sonic 1 on Master System, the differences between the two versions. And I sort of more so recommended the Master System version if you can get it. But unfortunately, most of the Sonic collection games have, like Sonic 1, for instance, they all have the Game Gear versions, which is kind of odd. Because obviously you're dealing with screen crunch, which is not the worst thing, but it's certainly not the best. I suppose it's probably better than 50 hertz, depending on the game. And according to the thing, it also says that you can backtrack in this game, whereas in the Game Gear version you can't. And oh yeah, if you collect 5 stars in this game, you get invulnerability, whereas you get additional points on the Game Gear version. and when you get hit by an enemy, you lose your weapon. So Don loses his hammer in the Master System version. But it can be obtained as a bonus item after defeating an enemy. The hammer is not lost when being hit by an enemy in the Game Gear version, so it does sound to me like the Game Gear version is generally easier. And we will sort of switch, I believe, in a minute to 60 Hz. In fact, I think we might have switched. No, we're about to switch. Now we're switching to 60 Hz. So as you can see, the screen is bigger, but the enemies move a lot faster, which is kind of awkward and kind of annoying at times. This is actually a more challenging level than the last one as well. So I think there's 3 levels where you have to defeat. You have to save Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and then you've got you have to go after the dimes. That's another 3 levels. And then I assume there's another level after that, I believe. So you've got the Northern Woods, the Great American Forest, the Andes Mountains, the Tropical Isles, the Pyramids, the South Pole, and then finally Magica's Castle. So, yeah. But as you can see, it looks much more fluid at 60, except for the weird distortions you can see I'm getting on the screen. Now whether that's something to do with the change to 60 Hz, it quite possibly might be. But as you can see, like it seems less glitchy than Sonic 1 was when I changed the sort of the frame rate as such. I never understand this. Donald's a duck, but it looks like he's got a blindfold on. So this particular level is way more challenging than the first level. You have to watch those turtles because they disappear at the last second. And I'm dead. I've still got a couple of other games I'm going to be doing on the 50 Hz and 60. I've still got Sonic 2 to do. I actually just recently discovered the cheat for Sonic 2 on Master System, and it's quite a neat little thing you can do to get levels, but it's really hard, Sonic 2. I don't know what it is about the Master System version of Sonic 2, but it's comparing it to the first game, it's unreal how difficult it is. As you can see, there's a lot of distortion at the top of the screen with a change of resolution, change of frame rate and resolution. Obviously, I think it's game runs in 4:3 aspect ratio, but obviously resolution is different between 50 Hz and 60 Hz games generally anyway. Bosses are not too difficult in the grand scheme of things, but it keeps you occupied. You know, it's a fun little game. I have got a pickups video coming up with a couple of new games and a new GPU as well. I might go into a little video about that at some point, but the whole GPU market right now is just an absolute, excuse the language, is an absolute clusterfuck. Low supply, extremely overpriced, not enough stock, and things like that. You know, general insanity. But I think kids could play this quite easily. I think they would get on with it quite once they sort of learn the way the game plays. It's a good decent fun game. But I've not noticed a lot of inconsistency with this in comparison to Sonic 1 with the 50 Hz, 60 Hz changes. It's been quite consistent. The one game I've played but I've never really got anywhere with is Quackshot on the Mega Drive or Genesis. That's another one that's quite interesting, but I've just never really Never really got into it. I don't know what it is about it exactly. You can see there is I suppose there is a little bit of latency, particularly with the Mega Drive and the Master System pad. When you jump, probably about a 2-second delay, something like that. I would get. I'm assuming. So I like the levels in this game. They're quite colourful, and there's some interesting environments as you're running down. This is one of the more challenging bits of the games, and later on there's a bit that probably isn't in this video where you have to avoid the flames as you sort of go down like a hole in the ground, but you've got these flames that drop, and they sort of dissipate the blocks as you go down. Yeah, it's a decent game. It's quite a lot of fun. Master System has a pretty extensive library anyway, particularly in Brazil. There's mass loads of games you can get for that system. This is one of the more challenging areas of the game. There's no real, in terms of hardness or anything, the game is very much just pick up and play. But I have got some other comparison videos coming up as well, as I've said. I've got one from Wonder Boy, The Dragon's Trap, which is a really, really good game. It's a really challenging game. I've yet to clear it, even on the remake that came out a few years back. Fantastic game. It's one of those games I do regret not sort of appreciating as a child, because I liked it but I never got anywhere with it. Whereas with the remake, I managed to sort of understand the concept of the game a lot more and what you had to do and stuff. And it's a really challenging game. Like the whole Wonder Boy, it was one of the games I was actually looking at, was the Wonder Boy collection. There's like 2 different collections I think on it. So I will be looking into that at some point. As I said, I've got a new GPU coming next month. The GPU market is, excuse the language, is a bit of a shit show. I mean, AMD had more stock than Nvidia did. Nvidia's stock was just a joke. But then again, I suppose what do you expect from a company that's just about AI now? They're not really a company that honestly care about gamers in the slightest. They're making most of their money from the AI now, so sad. But it's unfortunately it's a repeat of COVID again. You know, when we had the COVID and stuff, was locked down from 2020 to 2021, and my experience buying a PS5 was horrendous. It took me like, I think it was about 15 attempts on Amazon. Every time I added it to my cart, it wouldn't add, and because they were being scalped, same as your Series X and GPUs, they were all just being scalped, and it's exactly going on again. Essentially, all the scalping is happening again, unfortunately. But you have to sort of just have patience with these sort of things, because you can't do much else about it, really, in the grand scheme of things. But as I managed to get hold of a GPU quite luckily, well, I've paid for it, and basically I'd searched all the different sites, Scan, overclockers, and that, and Novatech, co.uk, and they're all like, you know, eBay, they're all being scalped for about 200-300 quid more. I didn't get mine at a retail price either. I think mine came in at it's a Sapphire. I could have got the Sapphire Pulse at 619, or the Sapphire Pure White card, which is the one I went for, at 634. So I went for that one in the end. I've got a Fantex P600S, so I wanted to do a white build for a change. So I've got that coming. That should be here between 29th of May, 29th of April and 2nd of May. But again, that could, in theory, I may still not get the card. It really is, I guess, dependent. I guess we'll see. But I paid for it, so Crossing my fingers, but I guess we'll see, because I've got to change my power supply and upgrade that as well for the PC. It recommends a 750. I've got a 750, but that might not give me a lot of headroom. I won't be doing the overclocking or anything like that, but yeah, so that's my GPU news. It's a sad state when things are scalped, no matter what it is, and people can't buy something. But it's sort of the way of the world now, unfortunately, I guess. I think that's probably why I tend to go back to a lot of these old games, because it reminds me of simpler times, more straightforward times. Not necessarily better times, but the world's more straightforward, gaming is more straightforward. And this is a really good game, it's a good fun. And it's on Game Gear as well, so you can get on there. And again, you can probably emulate it. But for £10, £14, if you've got the hardware, why not? I just use it on my mass system, it's got the bypass on it. Anyway, I've gone on long enough, and that is 50 versus 60 Hz on the mass system one. I hope you enjoyed.